Okay, let's unpack this. You've brought us a really fascinating stack of sources,
Yeah.
all focusing on something that's, well, it's definitely shifted from the fringes into the mainstream conversation. UAPs.
Unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're seeing strange sightings, government hearings popping up, photos going viral online, and it feels like this topic is just everywhere now.
Hmm. And it's prompting some pretty big questions, wouldn't you say?
For sure. So our mission here for this deep dive is to wade through all this material you've gathered. We've got official reports, we have personal testimony, lots of public speculation.
And even different worldviews wrapped up in it.
Right. We want to try and pull out the key takeaways, help you navigate what's become, honestly, a pretty complex and often confusing information landscape.
Absolutely. And the scope is wide. You've got reports from military pilot people trained to observe, then analyses from government agencies trying to get a handle on the data.
Plus that whole spectrum of public reaction.
Exactly. So yeah, our job is to sift through it with you, highlight what these sources are actually saying, what seems, most significant.
Okay, let's start with the name itself, because that change from UFO to UAP, that's actually a big piece of the story here, isn't it?
It really is. For decades, everyone knew them as UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Simple enough.
But now the official term you see everywhere, especially in government documents and serious reporting, is UAP.
That's right. Unidentified anomalous phenomena. And one source you brought points out a pretty recent expansion of that definition, December 2022.
Oh, yeah? What changed?
Well, it broadened from just unidentified aerial phenomena, things in the sky, to specifically include stuff seen in the ocean or things that move between air and water.
Ah, the transmedium objects they talk about.
Exactly. So it covers more domains.
So why the change? I mean, why ditch UFO after all this time? It's so iconic.
Well, the sources are pretty clear on this. UFO just got loaded down with baggage. Too much association with conspiracy theories, little green men.
Right, the whole cultural weight of it.
Yeah. And that created a real stigma, a serious problem, actually. Military pilots, other personnel, they were hesitant to report genuinely weird stuff they saw.
Because they were worried about their careers, or just looking crazy.
Both, probably. Fear of damaging their reputation, professional blowback. So the idea behind UAP is to have a more neutral, formal term, something to encourage reporting and allow for, serious objective study without all that cultural noise.
Makes sense. Less baggage, more data, hopefully.
That's the goal.
And even though the name is newer, the actual phenomenon, or at least the public interest, this isn't new at all. Your sources touch on the history.
Oh, absolutely not new. The material traces this back pretty far. We're talking the 1940s, events like Roswell, which everyone knows.
Yeah, that's kind of ground zero for a lot of this in the public mind.
Right. And by the 1960s, you already had figures like Donald Keyhoe publicly pushing for full disclosure from the government. So these calls for answers, for transparency, they've been around for a long, long time.
Okay, good context. So that sets the stage. Let's pivot to the official side of things, because your sources detail some pretty significant government efforts happening right now. What's the main thrust there?
The big one highlighted is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AAR. You hear that acronym a lot now.
Right, set up by the Pentagon in 2022.
Exactly. Their job is basically to be the central hub, consolidate UAP reports, investigate them, and, crucially, standardize how data is collected across the military and intelligence agencies. Try to get everyone on the same page.
And they've been reporting out their findings. What do your sources say AARO's actually finding? Or not finding?
Yeah, their annual report is key here. One of your sources from November 14th, 2024, digs into their work over the last year. They looked at almost 300 new cases.
Okay, part of a bigger pile, right?
Yeah, part of a database now totaling over 1,600 reports since they really started tracking in 2021. But the headline finding for the cases they reviewed this past year is no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial origins, at least not yet.
Okay, so officially, still no confirmed alien tech from the cases they've managed to resolve this year. But what about the ones they haven't figured out? That's always the intriguing part.
And that's where it gets really interesting. The sources point out that out of ARO's total holdings, something like 900 cases are still labeled unresolved.
Wow, 900. Why so many?
Mostly, they say, it's down to bad data. Not enough information, maybe the sensor data was poor quality, eyewitness accounts were vague, that sort of thing.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Kind of, but The November 2024 report specifically flags at least 21 cases from just the last year and a half that need more digging. They stand out because they can't be easily explained away, even with the data they have.
And the AARO director himself commented on those.
Yeah, John Kozlowski. And this is striking. He's got a background in physics, engineering, intelligence, serious credentials. And he said, under oath, that he flat out does not understand these 21 cases.
He doesn't understand them.
Nope. Nor, he says, does anyone else he knows with similar expertise. Which is a pretty candid admission from the guy in charge of figuring it out.
That is significant.
Yeah.
What else do the sources tell us about those specific 21 puzzling cases? Any details?
Well, according to that November report, they happened over the last, say, 18 months, multiple locations, all undisclosed. They had multiple witnesses.
Okay.
And in some instances, there was video evidence, too. But here's the really baffling part mentioned in the sources. There was apparently no common thread connecting them.
No commonality. Like they weren't all the same shape or doing the same thing.
Exactly. The reports ranged from seeing orbs to cylinders to triangles, just a mix of unexplained observations with no obvious pattern linking them.
Huh. So AARO's official position then, based on your sources, seems pretty careful. It's UAPs are real, we see them, but we haven't linked them to aliens so far.
Precisely. And they also say they can't determine the intent behind these things right now. Like, are they gathering info? They don't know.
And no evidence they're, say, advanced tech from Russia or China.
They state they have no evidence indicating that either. Their line is consistent: follow the science, follow the data wherever it leads, keep investigating.
And AARO isn't the only official game in town looking at this. NASA got involved too, right?
They did. NASA put together an independent study team back in 2022. 16 experts. They released their final report in September 2023.
And their focus was a bit different.
Yeah, they looked specifically at how UAP data is collected and analyzed. How can we do this better, more scientifically? And importantly, they only used unclassified information, stuff available publicly.
Okay. And their main conclusion.
It echoed AARO in some ways, but maybe with a slightly different emphasis. The big quote was from NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. There's a lot more to learn.
So acknowledging the mystery.
Definitely. Like AARO, they found no evidence of extraterrestrial origin thus far, but they were very explicit. They don't know what these UAP are. Their report hammered on the need for better data, higher quality sensors, more systematic reporting, and also, crucially, reducing that stigma we talked about. They want more pilots, more observers to come forward with good information, especially about that small fraction of sightings that really do defy easy explanation.
And they had a stance on the alien hypothesis.
Yeah, their position, quoted in the source, was basically that extraterrestrial life itself must be the hypothesis of last resort, meaning you exhaust all other possible explanations first.
Okay, so that's the official picture. Agencies are looking, they admit there are unexplained cases, but no proof of ETs yet. But then you have the individuals, the pilots, the whistleblowers, some giving really dramatic testimony under oath.
Yes, and the sources really highlight the impact of that testimony, especially from congressional hearings in July 2023 and again in November 2024. The pilot accounts are just incredibly compelling.
Because these are trained observers seeing things firsthand.
Exactly. Like Ryan Graves, he testified he saw UAP activity every day for a couple of years off the Atlantic coast during his Navy deployments.
Every day.
Wow. Yeah, he stressed these were not rare or isolated things for his squadron. And he spoke really powerfully about the stigma, called it real and powerful, and said it directly challenges national security because it silences people, not just military, but commercial pilots too, who see things they can't explain.
Keeps data from getting reported.
Precisely. And then, of course, there's David Fravor's famous 2004 Tic Tac encounter. That story gets told a lot.
Can you recap the basics from the sources?
Sure. He described this object, small, white, maybe 40 feet long, sort of oblong, like a tic-tac, hovering erratically just above the water, which was churning underneath it.
And the key things.
No wings, no visible means of propulsion, looked totally smooth. And its movements were just physics-defying, according to him. It mirrored his jet's descent, then shot upwards, accelerated instantaneously, vanished.
And reappeared miles away almost instantly.
Yeah, reappeared on radar about 60 miles away, less than a minute later. Fravor's assessment, as a highly experienced pilot given under oath, was that the technology was far superior to anything known. It just did not operate with any of the known aerodynamic principles.
Hard to dismiss accounts like that from people like Fravor and Graves.
Very hard. And then at that July 2023 hearing, you had David Grush, a decorated intelligence official turned whistleblower, and his claims were,
Uh,
well, even more extraordinary.
right, these were the really explosive allegations, based on what he said he was told by others.
Correct. He stated under oath that, based on information from, and he specified, multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals.
Okay.
He believes the U.S. government has secretly recovered craft of non-human origin, alien spacecraft, essentially.
And not just craft.
He also claimed the recovery of non-human biologics, or dead pilots, potentially going back as far as the 1930s.
Wow, okay. So a long-running secret program.
That's what he alleged, a multi-decade crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. He claimed he was improperly denied access to it when he tried to investigate as part of his official duties, and that there's been a government cover-up for, almost a century.
And he mentioned facing repercussions for trying to bring this out.
Yeah, the sources note he described facing very brutal retaliation. He used the term administrative terrorism, said he feared for his life.
Now, the sources add some important context here, right? About his testimony.
Yes, crucially. Grush was careful in the public hearing, limiting his statements to unclassified information. His claims about seeing the actual craft or biologics himself, he didn't make those claims directly. It was based on what these alleged high-level insiders told him.
So secondhand information, essentially, though he clearly believes it.
Right. He filed an official whistleblower complaint back in 2022 detailing all this. It's also important that a Pentagon spokeswoman, specifically addressing his claims about a secret retrieval program, denied any evidence that such a program existed.
Okay. And Grush himself had a view on what disclosure might achieve.
He did. He expressed hope that revealing this, if true, would cause an ontological shock, a fundamental shift in how humanity sees itself and its place in the universe. He felt it could actually unite people.
It's a massive gulf, isn't it? Between AARO saying no ET evidence yet in resolved cases, and Grush alleging recovered alien bodies and craft based on what he was told.
It's a huge gulf, and it creates a lot of tension. You also had, as one source mentioned, details coming out in that November 2024 hearing, military officials discussing under oath an incident where something apparently tracked and pinned an F-22 stealth fighter.
Pinning a stealth jet, that's notable.
Extremely. And the fact that officials are even discussing incidents like that under oath now, it really does feel like a significant acceleration in the flow of information compared to just a few years ago.
Yeah, the floodgates seem to be opening, at least partially, which ties into what one of your sources talks about this whole disclosure movement.
Right. This isn't just about government reports. There's a whole social movement pushing for this stuff to come out. Their basic belief is the government, especially the U.S. government, knows way more about UFOs and aliens than it's letting on, and it needs to declassify it all. Now,
Disclosure itself is kind of the big moment they're waiting for.
exactly. For many in the movement, it's seen as this climactic, almost prophesied event. And its roots, as we mentioned, go way back, even to the 40s and 50s. But a key figure mentioned in your sources is Stephen Greer.
Okay, what's his role?
He's widely credited with popularizing the term disclosure back in the 1990s. He founded the Disclosure Project, which campaigns for releasing the secret information and also claims access to advanced suppressed technologies.
And there's that CE5 protocol mentioned.
Yeah, some adherents practice that. CE5 stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It involves using meditation and consciousness techniques to try and proactively contact non-human intelligence. The idea being human-initiated contact might help force disclosure.
Interesting. And the sources also mentioned some predictions that have been made within this movement over the years.
They do. One source gives examples, not endorsing them, just reporting, where adherents have speculated that various major figures like Presidents Obama or Clinton or Trump or even religious figures like a pope were supposedly on the verge of announcing disclosure.
So a lot of anticipation, maybe sometimes misplaced.
It illustrates the intense focus on an imminent history-changing reveal within that community.
And how do observers sometimes frame this movement?
Well, one source notes it sometimes gets compared to a kind of religious belief system, using language similar to, say, end times preachers, or describing it as a sort of secularized Gnosticism, this idea of possessing hidden special knowledge that unlocks the truth.
There's also that interesting paradox mentioned by Mark Pilkington in one source.
Right. That's fascinating. He points out that advocates say they want the truth, but often what they seem to really want is confirmation of what they already believe.
From a government they fundamentally distrust anyway.
Exactly. It's a strange dynamic.
And that dynamic feeds right into the wider public debate and the very real skepticism that's highlighted in your sources. Because while we have more official acknowledgement in these dramatic testimonies, skepticism hasn't gone away.
Not at all. It's very strong. If you look at the Reddit source, for example, commenters bring up a lot of reasons why they're doubtful.
Like what?
Well, worries about disinformation campaigns. Maybe this is all meant to confuse adversaries or even the public. Financial motives are mentioned. Has ufology become a lucrative money-making industry for some?
The conference circuit, books, shows.
Right. Then there's the classic argument about whistleblowers being bound by non-disclosure agreements, so they can hint at things but never show definitive proof. Though, as we noted, the government says it's unaware of the specific NDAs Grush and others might be referring to.
And maybe the simplest reason for skepticism.
Just the continued lack of that undeniable physical proof, that piece of wreckage everyone can analyze, that crystal clear, verifiable video or photo. The smoking gun just isn't public yet, if it exists.
So it fuels both sides. That source captured it well. Is this a Renaissance era of UFO information or a Renaissance era of bullshit information?
Exactly. People are deeply divided on that.
And that recent viral photo over Capitol Hill is a perfect example of this whole dynamic.
Oh, yeah, the November 2024 lights photo. It blew up online. Immediate speculation. Alien ships over D.C. Look.
But then the more mundane explanation came pretty quickly.
Right. Experts, including known ufologists like John Greenwald Jr., pointed out it looked exactly like lens flare, a really common photographic artifact, especially with bright lights at night.
So public fascination, wanting to believe, clashing head-on with a plausible, conventional explanation.
That's the constant tension. More info is coming out from credible sources, military, government. That's undeniable. But that definitive, irrefutable public proof, still missing, which fuels belief and skepticism.
And sometimes official reports push back against the narrative too.
Yeah, like the March 2024 AARO report. It doubled down on saying there wasn't any hidden UFO information to disclose, and it seemed to subtly push back against some advocates, suggesting they were maybe promoting iffy ideas, which in turn led some followers to just lean harder into things like the secret space program narrative. It's a cycle.
Okay, let's broaden the lens a bit. Beyond the government reports and the disclosure debates, what other ways are people thinking about UAPs? Any wider implications or perspectives in your sources?
Yeah, several interesting ones. Scientifically, beyond just the what are they question, you have warnings from respected physicists, Stephen Hawking, Michio Kaku.
What are they warning about?
The potential dangers of actively trying to contact advanced alien civilizations, if they exist and if they're out there. They draw parallels to history, like Montezuma meeting Cortez. When a less technologically advanced society meets a vastly superior one, it usually doesn't end well for the former.
A sobering thought.
It is. Kaku also connects the discussion around potentially advanced UAP tech to really high-level physics Einstein's theories, quantum mechanics suggesting the phenomena might involve principles we barely grasp.
And there was that idea about aliens maybe not being biological.
Right, from philosopher Susan Schneider. That's a mind-bender. She suggests that if truly advanced intelligence exists elsewhere, it might have long ago surpassed biology. Could be post-biological AI.
Like super-intelligent machines.
Possibly. And potentially ancient, maybe billions of years older than us, which completely challenges our usual search methods focused on life as we know it and our anthropocentric view of intelligence.
That definitely shifts the perspective. And one source even looked at this through a religious lens.
Yes, an article from The Banner, a Christian publication. Their take was interesting. Discovering aliens wouldn't necessarily upend the Bible.
How so?
Their argument is, if aliens exist, God created them too. Humanity's specific significance in Christian theology comes from God's actions towards us, the incarnation, the sacrifice of Christ. That remains true for humanity, they argue, whether or not God created other beings elsewhere.
And how should people approach potential alien contact from that view?
The article suggested, with respect and care, treat them as fellow creatures of God. It's a perspective focused on maintaining faith while acknowledging scientific possibility.
And the sources also touch on what actual confirmed disclosure might mean practically.
Yeah, the potential consequences are huge. Obvious things like breakthroughs in energy or propulsion tech, if we could understand it, but also fundamental shifts in our understanding of our place in the universe.
Big challenges too, presumably.
Massive challenges. To national security, obviously. To existing religions and philosophies. Huge cultural and social upheaval, potentially, on a global scale.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground. Government reports, witness accounts, whistleblower claims, cover-up theories, skepticism, scientific and religious angles. It's a lot to take in.
It really really is.
Given all this conflicting information, the speculation, the unknowns, how should you, listening, try to approach this topic? What's the advice from the sources?
The overwhelming message is critical thinking is absolutely essential. You have to verify information. Where is it coming from? Is the source credible?
Don't just react to a flashy headline.
Exactly. Be super wary of sensationalism, of claims with zero evidence, or stories relying only on anonymous sources you can't check. Look for evidence-based reporting. Cross-reference what you're hearing from multiple reliable places, and always consider the potential bias of any source.
Do the sources recommend any specific outlets for more grounded info?
One source did suggest a few known for trying to maintain rigor in this space. Places like The Debrief, Aviation Week in Space Technology, especially for the tech and defense angles, and Scientific Americans for the broader scientific context, like astrobiology.
So, do your homework on the sources themselves.
Yes. And just as importantly, engage respectfully. It's easy for these discussions to get heated. Maintain an open mind, be willing to listen to different viewpoints, even ones you disagree with.
And challenge bad info with facts.
Right. Challenge misinformation with evidence and reasoned arguments, not personal attacks. It's about trying to understand the whole messy picture, not just winning an argument or confirming what you already think.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, we've seen this real increase in official engagement, some truly fascinating testimony coming out. But alongside that, there's still this lack of definitive public physical proof and a whole lot of persistent, understandable skepticism.
That sums it up well. Agencies like AARO and NASA are clear. No confirmed alien origin so far in the cases they've fully investigated. But there's still that subset of UAP reports that genuinely remain unexplained. And that keeps driving the science, the public fascination, and the ongoing debate.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, kind of looping back to one of those wider perspectives we discussed. It's a big if, but if that idea is right, that advanced alien life might actually be incredibly ancient post-biological AI, how might our current ways of searching need to change? If we're mostly looking for biological signatures or physical craft that fit our understanding of physics, are we even equipped to detect, let alone understand, something potentially that different? What would we even be looking for?